Apostles Peter and Paul were both executed in Rome for promoting Christianity. The Roman Empire's emperor, Nero, did not like Christianity because Christians did not participate in Roman religion and they refused to worship Roman gods such as Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, Venus, and Apollo. This refusal was viewed as subversive behavior. The Roman government may have believed that Christianity was trying to undermine the Roman culture and the Roman government. So Christians were arrested, jailed, and sometimes executed. Peter was arrested his final time after preaching Christianity for about 34 years, from about the year 33 AD to the year 64 to 67 AD. In Rome, they claim his final arrest was in the year 67 AD. Paul was arrested his last time after preaching Christianity from about the year 34 AD to about 68 AD or 67 AD. Before they were executed, Peter and Paul were held at the Mamertine Prison in Rome, which is located right here, right next to the Forum in Rome. The Forum was the political center, the legal center, and the business center of the capital, Rome. Today, museums in Rome say they were both held in the prison at the same time and executed on the same day, June 29th, 67 AD. However, scholars believe they were not executed on the same day, but were executed in the same year. This is what their jail cell looks like today. So this is the museum for where Peter and Paul were held in prison. And the old prison is down these steps. You can see the old walls. There's this upper room here. There's a sarcophagus, I'm not sure, or a memorial. But they have this upper room here. And the chamber that Paul and Peter were held in is down these stairs right here. And this is the actual chamber where Peter and Paul were held in prison before they were executed. This is what it looks like today. It's round, mostly round, and it ends here. It's kind of dark in here, it's hard to see, but that right here in front of me is a big steel door. So, yeah, it's dark, but it's, see if I can get a better view of it, but that's the door, or a door. And it's the ceiling and the wall, and they have lights in here, but they didn't have lights back then, so it would have been very, very dark in here. But this is the prison cell where Peter and Paul were both kept before they were executed. And they were executed because they kept promoting Jesus. They kept promoting Jesus Christ and his message. And that's why they were executed. It is said that the chains that handcuffed Peter are at the Basilica di San Pietro in Vincole, Rome. Right here. Go to Street View. This is the front of the basilica. Inside they have the chains. There is also the mausoleum for Pope Julius II. It is made up of Michelangelo's statue of Moses, which was created between the year 1505 and 1515. According to tradition, Peter was crucified upside down on a cross because he said he was not worthy to die on a cross like Jesus did. So he requested to be crucified upside down. However, this claim has never been adequately substantiated. What is known without dispute is that Peter was crucified on a cross. The precise location is not known, but according to the information I found, he was crucified in this general area in what is Vatican City today. Somewhere within this yellow line right here. So here's the obelisk. There's the church with the dome, and they said that Peter was executed or crucified somewhere in this general area, in here or where I'm standing. But somewhere here, approximately where I'm standing. He wasn't crucified where the obelisk is, and he wasn't crucified where his bones are, but it was somewhere here in this general area. After his execution, it is said he was buried here, directly underneath the giant dome at the Vatican. Peter's grave is the centerpiece of the basilica at the heart of Vatican City. So the Apostle Peter's remains are buried down in there, underneath this 29-meter tall bronze canopy, which is directly under the center of the giant dome. The dome is gigantic, and to give some perspective, this is a person walking on the walkway that goes around the base of the dome. Apostle Paul was taken from Mamertine Prison to a location known today as the Church of St. Paul at the Martyrdom, about 6 miles or 10 kilometers south of the prison. They say he was placed in a temporary holding cell right here before being taken to his execution. The pathway to his execution is said to still have some of the original stones that he had to walk across on the way to his execution. His final destination, which is now covered by the Church of St. Paul at the Martyrdom, is right here. They say this was the stone that he knelt before and placed his chin on top of before they beheaded him. Historians in Rome say this is definitely the stone used, but scholars elsewhere say they simply don't know for sure. So Paul the Apostle was actually held down here in this room. Before his execution. When it was time for his execution, they walked him up these steps. And probably out of here. Then they walked him down this path here. Toward his execution point. And I'm going to just walk this whole path with the video rolling so I can get an idea of how far he had to walk before they beheaded him, before they executed him. So I'm doing this in real time. I'm walking kind of fast. I'm pretty sure Paul did not walk this fast. And right here in the chains is the original path. So that means Paul most likely walked on these exact stones here to get up to his execution point. But those are the original stones that were here when Paul was walked to his point of execution. And that point of execution is right inside here. He was executed on this stone, and if you notice, there's an angle on the stone where he put his chin on top. I guess his throat was on the angle, and then they just beheaded him. So I'm gonna I believe the Church of St. Mary of the Stairway to Heaven, right here, appears to be built on top of the temporary holding cell where he was held. After his execution, he was buried in a plot of ground about 2.5 miles or 4 kilometers north of where he was executed. Today, the area is marked by the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, right here. Inside is his grave, and a chain they say was used to chain Paul to the Roman guard who was responsible for watching him. So Paul the Apostle is buried right down here. So Paul is actually buried underneath here. Back in there and underneath this. Peter and Paul were frequently persecuted for being Christians. For about 282 years, Christians were persecuted from around the year 30 AD to the year 312 AD. That all changed in October of 312 AD. Rome had 3 emperors at that time. There was Constantine, up in what is modern-day Europe, Licinius, who was in the area of modern-day Milan, and Maxentius, who was a usurper in the city of Rome. Constantine came down from the north with about a 40,000-man army to face off against Maxentius, who had an army of approximately 100,000 men. On October 27th, 312, the night before the battle, Constantine had a dream, or a vision, of a symbol with the words, "In this sign you shall conquer." This symbol is one of the earliest symbols showing the first 2 letters of Christ, C and H. It is said that Constantine had all his men paint this symbol on their armor and shields. Constantine's army came from the north and met Maxentius's army just north of the MilvianBridge, right here, and the battle occurred somewhere throughout this area here. As Constantine's army began to win decisively, Maxentius's army began to retreat back across the bridge. They say the bridge they ran back across was a pontoon bridge at that time, and they also say this current bridge was still there, but may have had damage to it in an attempt to slow down or discourage Constantine's army. In the melee, while attempting to run back across the bridge, Maxentius fell into the Tiber River and drowned. Constantine's troops found his body downstream and beheaded him. Later, they would send his head to other locations in order to strike fear into any potential enemies of Constantine. The next day, October 29th, 312 AD, Constantine victoriously marched into Rome. So here is the MilvianBridge. And according to the information I found, the battle between Constantine and Maxentius would have taken place somewhere up in there. And this is what the area looks like today. So Maxentius would have been running from that direction toward the camera, fell into the river. And his body would have been picked up down there somewhere. So here I am at the south end of the Milvian, looking north. And the Tiber River flows to the west. As a result, Constantine believed there was something powerful about Christianity, and in February of 313 AD, he created the Edict of Milan, which made it illegal to persecute Christians. In 380 AD, Christianity became the official state religion of the Roman Empire. Essentially, Constantine was the emperor responsible for protecting Christians and allowing Christianity to be what it is today. Between the years 326 AD and 333 AD, Emperor Constantine ordered a basilica over Peter's grave to be built. They say it was completed in the year 360 AD. Over 1100 years later, the aging basilica was replaced with the current basilica, which began construction on April 18, 1506, and was completed November 18, 1626. The Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls was also commissioned by Emperor Constantine and was consecrated by Pope Sylvester in 324 AD. In the year 386 AD, Emperor Theodosius had a much larger and more beautiful basilica built over Paul's grave. In 1823, that basilica was almost completely destroyed by fire and had to be rebuilt between 1823 and 1854. The rebuild is the one standing today. So there you have it, a brief description for the locations of Apostle Peter and Apostle Paul's jail, execution sites, and burial sites, along with a brief description of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge right here on the Forrest Haggerty channel.